What's up, everybody? I'm Adam. You're watching the Model Aviator channel, and I know a lot of you are really excited to see this one, especially you, Al. You know who you are. We're excited to be able to show this one to you. This is another one of Mike Patey's amazing creations modeled by the folks at E-Flite and Horizon Hobby. This is Micro Scrappy. Now, Micro Scrappy comes in this box with a convenient carrying handle. There is a little bit of assembly required. It's essentially field assembly. Doesn't take long at all. You can store and transport the airplane in that box if you'd like, but most of us will probably be able to store and transport it fully assembled the way that you see it here. Now, people have known about this one for a minute or two, and there are a lot of questions surrounding this, comparisons, this to Micro Draco, and one of them is, how do they compare in size? Well, it's going to be difficult for you to tell looking at this on the bench through the camera lens. I'll try to hold it as close to perfectly over Scrappy as I can, but essentially they are very similar in size, but Scrappy is just a fraction larger. So when it comes to the field assembly, the manual does a great job of taking you through what amounts to about 3 steps. You'll need a small Phillips head screwdriver and about 1.5 minutes. The part count amounts to the wing, the fuse, the wing struts, and a package of 2 screws, only one of which you'll need. There's a single multi-connector in the fuse. You'll plug that into the connection on the wing. Be sure you don't pinch the multi-wire putting the wing on the fuse. The wing is tongue and groove at the front, and you'll use that single Phillips head screw at the back. The struts attach via ball links to the wings and a tab and slide system on the fuse. And there you go. Very simple field assembly. Worth noting, the manual tells you how to tell the difference in the right wing strut and the left wing strut. It's actually pretty obvious just looking at the model, but the manual tells you if you want to know. Now, when it comes to the wing struts, we're in a unique position with this airplane for a couple of reasons. The first thing is it was announced before we were supposed to have our videos ready. So we've had a couple of weeks to see what people thought about it, see the questions that you have about it. It makes it easy to address some of the things that we've heard and answer some of the questions that people have asked. The other thing is, being a reviewer at the level that we are, and we're blessed to be there, we really are. We appreciate everyone that supports us, from the companies to our viewers. We have an opportunity to have conversations with the PD teams with some of these companies, Horizon being one of them, the product development team. And when it comes to airplanes this size, like Micro Draco, Micro Scrappy, the smaller the airplanes are, the harder it is to make them fly well. And one of the reasons that Scrappy and Draco are micro versus slightly smaller UMX is even the slight increase in size makes it easier to make them fly well. And when you're dealing with a scale airplane versus a sport plane like a Timber, for instance, where you're at liberty to just do whatever you want to do with the design to make it fly well, there's only so much you can stretch and enlarge and change without sacrificing too much of the scale fidelity with a scale plane. So it really puts them up against it to make an airplane like this fly well. Well, weight at this size is really crucial. So the reason that the wing struts are made the way they're made is because they add almost no weight at all, and they're not functional. The airframe is carbon reinforced, so they don't even need to be there for flight forces. They're just there to add a little bit of scale to tail without adding a whole lot of weight. And the other thing that we've seen some question about is the wings and the wing tips. There were some folks that thought that this was the same wing as the Micro Draco. This is actually an all-new design, an all-new mold. It's not the same wing. I can see why people would especially think that the tips look similar, because they do. The reason that the full-scale Scrappy's wing tips are different than the model is because Mike Patey has plans to put these tips on the full-scale plane. He loved the way that design of tips worked on Draco, and so he's going to put that on Scrappy eventually, so your model will look like the actual Scrappy for a lot longer, because Horizon went ahead and got ahead of that and just put the modification on the model. Now, when it comes to the tips specifically, they are a little bigger, a little wider on Scrappy than they are on Draco. To be quite honest, Scrappy is about an ounce heavier than Draco. There's a few more different scale details that add a little bit of weight, and then just the design of the airplane in and of itself. But the wing has more span as well as more chord, so there's more wing area to help make up for that extra weight. The other thing that we've seen some people ask about, two things really, the slats and the reason that they didn't put those on there, and how come it doesn't come with two bikes hanging from underneath the wing like might be. Well, like we said before, weight is crucial. Plastic or 3D printed bikes are just going to add weight and drag to a model that does not need more weight and drag. That would really affect the way the airplane flies, and I think make it probably unpleasant. And making the airplane fly well as a model is always at the top of their list. Scale fidelity is one thing, but if scale fidelity sacrifices flight performance, people are really going to complain about that. Having a really nice scale airplane that nobody can fly doesn't really help anybody. So when it comes to slats on an airplane this size, one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. My best guess is that they probably tested this airplane with slats and elected to just go with a bigger leading edge and add wing area because that just makes it fly better. While the official name for this model is Micro Scrappy 800mm, the wingspan is actually 821mm or 32.3 inches. It's 20.2 inches long or 512mm. Our example weighs 9.53 ounces with the recommended 4S 300 milliamp pack. It has a 1412 1500 kV brushless outrunner motor, an array of linear servos, and is intended for 3S and 4S 300 milliamp packs. Being a micro-sized plane and capable of flying very slow in the right hands, Scrappy can be flown in smaller areas. A decent sized yard, parks, schoolyards, and obviously sanctioned flying fields. You just need to make sure that you're aware of the laws governing model flying where you live and that you're taking the proper steps to make sure that people and their property are not put at risk. Horizon sells this as a bind and fly, which means it has an internal receiver board that is Spectrum DSM2 and DSMX protocol compatible. It is a 5-channel airplane out of the box. You have elevator, rudder with a steerable tail wheel, ailerons, flaps, throttle control, and there's a 6th virtual function that allows you to switch between AS3X stabilization and optional safe select. The mold on Micro Scrappy is very well done. There's a lot of detail molded in, and there are a lot of other scale details. The prop really looks the part. The gear is very scale as well as very rugged. We put that to the test. We'll show you in a segment during the flying. The tail wheel is very rugged and very scale looking, and worth noting there's a lot of deflection on that tail wheel. You can do a 180 with this airplane inside the wingspan of the airplane, and that comes in handy in a lot of situations that we'll also show you in the flying. It has a wonderful set of LEDs. The only micro or ultra micro with a better set of LEDs is Micro Draco, just because Draco had more lights than the actual Scrappy. But these are very impressive and they are day bright. You will also see in the flying that even when the sun's out in the middle of the day, you can see those lights. So that is pretty impressive. It is a convenient top loader with plenty of room in that battery bay for the recommended size packs and then some. We'll talk about the then some in the setup chapter coming up next. The only other thing that we wanted to touch on is another thing that we've heard people talking about, and that is the window stickers versus clear windows. And we wanted to kind of explain that. The best analogy that I can give you is to utilize cars. So a car frame, every aspect of it provides rigidity for that car. The roof and the rear pillars provide a lot of rigidity for the car and keep it from flexing under power and acceleration and in turns. So when you make a convertible version of a car, you remove that rigidity. You have to replace that underneath, and right back here, with a lot of heavy reinforcement. If you look at the specs on the convertible version of a car versus the sedan, you'll notice that the convertibles, even though it looks like there's less car, there's actually more. They're always heavier than the sedan because of the added reinforcement. And that's the same principle with a small high-wing model like this. First off, if all those stickers were actual clear plastic, you'd be staring at electronics and foam for one thing. There's not room in there for a detailed interior, so it'd be pretty boring to stare in clear windows that big and see what you'd see. But the main thing is the principle we're talking about there. The wing mounts right there. Those windows are underneath it. It's much easier to make the airplane fly well and be rigid by just leaving the foam with a little bit of carbon fiber reinforcement and making that area strong, so if you dig a wing in or if you cartwheel it at slow speed, you don't just tear the airplane into all kinds of pieces. If you had clear windows and clear plastic there, in the very little bit of area that you have left to mount the wing, you'd have to add enough reinforcement to make up for that, and that reinforcement would weigh more than the foam and the stickers do, and since weight is really crucial, they elected to go with stickers, and you're going to see that on small high-wing planes the vast majority of the time, and that is the reason. I really think their goal was to give you as much scale fidelity as they could while still giving you an airplane that flies well. When it comes to setup, two of the questions we get often about UMX and microplanes is, do they have AS3X Plus yet? And do they have the smart transmitter file setup? And the answer is not yet. I don't know this for sure, but given Horizon's propensity to make things as convenient and easy as they can for the end user, I would be willing to strongly bet that they're working on that, and that's something that's coming at some point in the future. But for now, OG AS3X does a great job of stabilizing airplanes this size, and the manual does a great job of taking you step by step through programming your DX, NX, or IX transmitter specifically for Scrappy. That manual setup is a really good starting point. You can fly the airplane and adjust things like the CG, expo, and the throw to your liking from there. We made a few tweaks to our setup. We'll have our full setup page at the end of this chapter. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about battery choice. I've said this before. I'm going to keep saying it because it's useful information. Just because you can get a bigger battery in an airplane this size doesn't mean that you should. Just to give you an example, we fly the airplane on the Spectrum 300 milliamp 3 and 4S packs. This 300 milliamp 4S pack is 1.2 ounces. Just moving up to a 4S 450 adds 0.6 of an ounce. That doesn't sound like a lot. A park flyer, it wouldn't be. But we're talking about a microplane that weighs 9.5 ounces ready to fly. 0.6 of an ounce is a lot. Airplanes this size, we've already explained earlier how hard it is to make planes this size fly well. They're more sensitive to weight changes than a park flyer or a full field flyer. So 0.6 of an ounce can make a difference. And the big mistake that I see a lot of people making is they get a micro like this, they take the hatch off, they look in there and go, ooh, my 600 or 700 milliamp 4-cell will fit in there just fine. I'll get an adapter to a JST and in it goes. And then they tell everybody that it flies like a turd. Because it does, but it's not because of the airplane. It's because of the end user putting too heavy of a pack in there. So I implore you, fly the airplane on these light packs. It doesn't have to be Spectrum. If you don't want to spend the money on Spectrum, get something with a JST 3 or 4S in this size range if you can find it, and use that. But try it on the light packs first before you stuff your honking heavy battery in there for the sake of flight time. I'll be willing to bet what you'll end up doing is just have more lighter packs and flying the airplane on those. It is a bush plane. For a lot of people, the low and slow and stall characteristics are the thing that are going to count the most. And the lighter you can fly this, the better it is at that. So coming up next is our full setup page. You can pause that, check it out, set up your Scrappy the way we did if you'd like. After that, we've got a lot of flight footage for you. We've got some low and slow, some aerobatics, and some bush flying. Enjoy the flying. We'll meet you back here. We'll give you our final thoughts on Mike Patey's latest. A lot of tail wheel deflection gives Scrappy a very tight turning radius. There's a lot of situations you'll find yourself in where that will come in very handy. Here we're flying early in the morning at a local park, and it's pretty much calm. Like most Cubs, Scrappy benefits from coordinated turns and using the rudder. It isn't a must. With Scrappy, there's a lot of aileron differential, meaning that the aileron that goes up much farther than the aileron that goes down. This helps to kind of slide the plane around through the turns and kind of coordinate the turn for you somewhat, but cleaning it up by using rudder just makes it look even better. And here we just climbed up to show you that Scrappy can do a few aerobatics on 3-cell just fine. Believe it or not, this is only our second flight ever with Scrappy, and here we're putting it in a cross-control situation to see how it does in a flat turn. Very stable, did just fine. Those of you that follow our channel regularly knew that was coming. This was our first grass landing. It's pretty thick and wet, and Scrappy handled it just fine. On this one, we're at a different venue, different day later in the afternoon, and we had a little bit of wind gusts, around 4 or 5 miles an hour. When you go to 4-cell, Scrappy is not lacking for power at all. Scrappy has a lot of side area and a very large vertical and rudder. It knife edges very well, but like most high-wing planes, there is a good bit of coupling that you have to account for. When it comes to inverted flight, given our balance point, it's not completely neutral, but it's close. Very little down elevator is required to maintain inverted flight. This surprised me. Scrappy does a wicked flat spin. I do love a good one-wheeler. One thing we wanted to make sure we mentioned, we're trying to fit a bunch of different flight footage and information in one review, so these flights are edited for time. When you're really rocking and rolling with Scrappy, you can expect to get 5 to 6 minutes on a 300 milliamp 3 or 4S pack. When you're just doing low and slow, you'll get about 8 to 9. With an airplane this small, especially a bush plane, we consider pretty much any runway that's not smooth bush flying. And this really surprised me. The grass that we're taking off and landing on here is not freshly cut. It's not super short and kind of rough. And Scrappy handled it just fine. The wind wasn't blowing hard, but it was gusting and changing directions on me a little bit. It made this more challenging than it would be, obviously, if it was calm. And I felt like Scrappy did as good in a little bit of wind as it did on this grass. Same afternoon, same conditions, just a few minutes later, we're now in the gravel parking lot of our flying field. And yes, for the Safety Patrol RC guys, we did have permission, and no, no one else was there. The area we're taking off and landing on now is the remnants of what I believe was a ditch that was dug to lay conduit to put power to our charging station at our flying field. It's a relatively rough dirt area that's kind of uneven and it has some machine tracks in it, and Scrappy handled it just fine. Right there, I pulled it off a little bit early and got hit by a gust and it almost bit me, but thankfully we recovered. This is one of those areas where the tight turning radius and all that tail wheel deflection really comes in handy. Scrappy will fly low and slow on the 4-cell 300 pack just fine, but when that's our primary mission, we like to fly it as light as we can get it, so we opt for the 3-cell 300. This is a clean stall, and if you hold it, it will drop a wing. And now we're going to do takeoff flaps and landing flaps. Just a little wobble, very easy to catch, and takeoff flaps. Same thing with landing flaps, but if you hold it a little bit longer, it will drop the wing harder. As soon as you let go, it recovers. These are certainly not my best efforts, but the point is, the gear took it. I'd like to start this final thoughts segment by saying that this video was longer than it normally would be because we took the time to share some of the knowledge that we've learned over the last few years from people that make models like this happen every day. We get it. It's very easy to take a look at something and say to yourself, based on the little bit of information that most people have, why didn't they do this or why did they do that? Well, when you get into the nuts and bolts and you have a better understanding of why decisions are made the way that they are, it really gives you some perspective, and hopefully sharing some of the stuff we shared with you in this video did give you some perspective and you got something out of it. When it comes to Scrappy, Scrappy flies great. It does low and slow well, it does aerobatics well, and it makes turning small areas into a great place to bush fly really easy to do. The gear seems very rugged. I love the tight turning radius, and it does really well. I was surprised at how well it does off surfaces that you would think would really challenge an airplane this small, and it just ate them all up and had no problem with it. So very impressed on that front. When it comes to comparing this to Micro Draco, which we know a lot of people are going to ask us to do, the best way I can put it is this. I think Micro Draco might get just a little bit slower than Scrappy, but Scrappy is certainly no slouch at low and slow. I think Scrappy is equally as rugged, if not more so, than Draco. I think it is probably better suited for bush flying, even though Draco does really well. I think this probably does it a little bit better. If nothing else, the tight turning radius and the really super rugged gear is going to help a lot. And when it comes to aerobatics, Scrappy is better at aerobatics than Draco, and it makes doing those aerobatics easier in my opinion. So there you have it. When it comes to skill level, Horizon says that this is a skill level 2 airplane, and I couldn't agree more. It has safe select. You could technically use this as a trainer, but there are better trainers to be had, like the Apprentice Stol S or an Aero Scout. This is a great airplane to make your second plane after you master a trainer, in our opinion. When it comes to price point, it is $219.99 for the bind and fly. Given the current trade situation that we're in, given what it is, and the fact that, I mean, let's be honest, this was a lofty goal, and I think they met it. It looks good, it flies good, and I think that's a fair price. They also offer an ultimate combo where you can get Scrappy, a Spectrum NX7E transmitter, a charger, a battery, and the E-Flite Trainer Edition for $599. If you were to buy all that stuff separately, it would be about $721. So about $121 of savings there. That's pretty significant. If you would like to add a Scrappy to your hangar, we'll put links in the description to Horizon and Tower Hobbies where you can do just that. When you use those links, it helps support our channel. And when you do that, Heidi and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Bottom line, they hit the marks. We're pleased with it. And if you want to add one to your hangar, we think you will be too. That's it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.